This is the news on PBCJ. I am Simone Absalom. Nearly 15% of all women in Jamaica aged 15 to 49 who have ever married or partnered have experienced physical or sexual violence from a male partner in the previous months. This was revealed by Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton as he addressed a public forum on gender-based violence recently at the Terranova All Suite Hotel in St. Andrew. He was citing statistics from the Health Ministry's soon-to-be-released 2017 Knowledge, Attitude, Belief and Practice report, which covers intimate partner violence. He noted that 3.7% of the respondents reported being afraid of what their abuser would do if they refused to have sexual intercourse. He argued that the fear of stigma associated with HIV may prevent women who are victims of sexual violence from being tested or otherwise from returning for the results, and that those living with HIV may not even report the incident out of fear of being re-victimized. Dr. Tufton said that the Ministry of Health cooperates with the Ministry of Justice in handling reported cases of sexual violence, and although there are some challenges, the ministry is determined to overcome them. Almost 30 years after Jamaica first started its consideration of laws to address the issue of sexual harassment, Executive Director of Women Inc., Joyce Hewitt, has concluded that the political will is not there for the legislation to be passed. And Hewitt is convinced that the delay in the legislation is partly because men are the ones who are predominantly making the decisions in Parliament. Speaking with the press recently, Hewitt noted that there have been discussions about introducing sexual harassment legislation from as far back as 1991. She told the Gleaner, quote, "Policy has no teeth. With regard to enforcement, you really need legislation, and not that legislation is wherewithal, but you need legislation at least as a start. And then, of course, we have to work on changing behaviors. That is ultimately what we need to do. Change behavior, change the culture." End quote. Minister with responsibility for gender affairs, Olivia Grange, indicated in September that the administration was a step closer to taking the sexual harassment legislation to Parliament. According to Minister Grange, sexual harassment is a very serious crime that militates against desired level of peace, harmony, and happiness in the country. Prime Minister Andrew Holness announced that he will sign with the Inter-American Development Bank a new kind of loan product, a contingent credit facility for $285 million. This facility will provide immediate financing during the emergency recovery phase after a sudden event. And he's encouraging leaders of small island developing estates to engage in fruitful discussions with its international partners on building resilience in the Caribbean. Speaking at the International Monetary Fund conference on Monday in Washington, D.C., Prime Minister Holness underscored that the discussions on building resilience must include impacts such as increases in sea temperatures, which, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, is causing the bleaching of reefs at an unprecedented rate. Mr. Holness said, quote, "Caribbean nations require the immediate attention and requisite funding to build resilience to this specific climate impact. This climate impact that we don't usually speak about poses a clear and present danger to us in the Caribbean, especially given our heavy resilience on our reefs and shellfish industry." End quote. Prime Minister Holness said he is seeking to create and strengthen the national platforms for hazard risk reduction, including measures to incorporate them into land use practices and forward-thinking urban planning. In other local news, a Jamaica Defense Force trainee pilot flying a helicopter was forced to make an emergency landing in an open field in St. Catherine yesterday morning. He survived the frightening ordeal. PBCJ understands that the soldier, identified as Captain James, was treated at the University Hospital of the West Indies. The JDF's Civil Military Corporation and Media Affairs Officer, Major Basil Jarrett, told journalists, quote, "The good thing is that the pilot was able to walk away from the landing site, and we are very encouraged by that." End quote. Up to press time, it was not clear what caused the pilot to land the Bell 206 platform helicopter behind Phoenix Park housing scheme about 10:40 a.m. Damage to the aircraft was reportedly not extensive. The Health Ministry yesterday denied that there is an outbreak of hand, foot, and mouth disease, even as parents have reported a number of cases, and a pediatrician has confirmed seeing an increase in the number of children affected by the disease. Consultant pediatrician Dr. Heather White told the Jamaica Observer that there was a spike in the numbers several weeks ago and then there was a lull. However, she explained in the last 2 weeks or so there have been seeing more cases of the illness. According to the ministry's website, hand, foot, and mouth disease is a contagious illness caused by different viruses characterized by rash on the lips, inside the mouth, on hands, feet, and buttocks. It mainly affects infants and children under 5 years old, but older children and adults can also get it. Along with the rash, symptoms include sudden fever, loss of appetite, and a sore throat. In regional news, agricultural officials have dismissed reports that plastic cabbage had been imported into Dominica as the island followed a number of Caribbean countries and banned the importation of romaine lettuce originating from the United States. Recently, videos and pictures had been posted on the social media network showing that what has been described as a plastic cabbage has been imported. But head of the Plant Protection and Quarantine Unit, Nelson Laville, said the authorities had done their own test on the cabbage brought into the island, and it was found that the cabbage was genuine. In sports, President of the Jamaica Olympic Association, Christopher Samuda, says sports federations will have to become more efficient, revenue-generating entities. Speaking at a recently held launch of the 15th Wesley Powell Track and Field Meet on the campus of Excelsior High School, Samuda said a key component of this vision encompasses the activation of the National Sports Council. The JOA president urged sporting bodies to embrace a business-centered approach to their affairs. Mr. Samuda is quoted saying, "If we are serious about sport development in 2028, our sport association federation organizations, entities, must by then be efficient business outfits with corporate management structures which promote and embody a culture of good governance, performance, transparency, and accountability." End quote. He said those organizations operate at a grassroots level and therefore at that level must get it right. And that's the news on PBCJ. Pleasant viewing.